Welcome back, viewers and listeners. You're joining me for a very interesting conversation, all in light of Women's Month. Joining me now is a writer, actor, theatre maker, facilitator, improviser, and activist based in Cape Town with her companion cat, Marsha the Most. Her debut novel, Lost Property 2023, was long listed for the Sunday Times Fiction Award, and she's known for plays like The Tent, Drive With Me, and The Clouds Like Waves. Joining me, help me welcome Megan Choritz. I hope I didn't butcher that. Thank you so much for joining us here on Salam Media.
Thank you so much for having me. What an honor.
Now, as a creative, I'd like to ask you if you were if your life were a streaming series, what would the title be and what's the plot of the season?
It would be the end of the world as we know it, and it would be the biggest plot twist of the world turning fascist while we watched.
Mm. Now, Megan, I'd like you to take us on a journey. Let's live that series now in terms of from UCT, graduating and, being an actor, now being an activist. How did that all come about?
It's interesting because in a weird kind of way, it's the same thing. I mean, I think that when you are an actor, you are trying to portray characters and stories that will change an audience and change the way that they feel, change their hearts. So you've got an audience who comes in at the beginning of a performance, and by the time they leave, they feel different and they think differently about the world. And in a weird kind of way, I think that that's what activism is as well. It's kind of message driven. You're always wanting to change people's hearts. You want to awaken people's emotions. You want to change how they feel about things, and you want them to have a different relationship with humanity.
Mm-hmm. And coming back to your book, Lost Property,
Mm.
it has been described as exploring belonging, motherhood, and the scars left on those who are not mothered well. Can you please tell us, in terms of, without giving any, spoilers, what women's issues around care, identity, and safety did you want to bring into light?
I wanted to talk about, in particular, the very dysfunctional relationships that white children had with their mothers
Mm.
during apartheid. And so a lot of it is drawn on my own personal history, growing up in a very middle class Jewish home in Johannesburg, and this kind of weird disconnect
Mm.
between where we were as a country and what was happening with apartheid, and having an absent mother and also a black nanny who brought me up. So these two completely different sets of values. So that was it was very much asking those kinds of questions. It's interesting that you raised that, because tonight I launched my second novel called The Sound of Ice, which it also deals with motherhood, but in a very, very different way. And it's much more sort of a dystopian look at our current world and where we're at right now, and the resilience of women, and
Mm.
how women have to forge these complicated relationships, sometimes even against their will, in order to survive and in order to fight against a very masculine world.
Speaking of which, as an activist who's a woman, how has that experience been for you? I don't know if woman comes first, then activism, or activism first, then women.
Um, it's interesting for me because I think that it happens on two different levels. I think on the one hand, um, there is space given for women activists,
Mm,
um, that normally wouldn't necessarily be given, but at the same time, as a woman activist, you really have to fight for your space and struggle against patriarchy and sexism and the way that things have usually been done.
mm,
So I think it's a double-edged sword, because it's also very interesting for me that the activist space is filled with incredibly powerful, incredibly strong women, but we still have to fight for our space in a male dominated world. And I also think it's very important for us to remember that when wars are fought, they are
Mhm.
fought mainly by men. And it is the women, the mothers, the women teachers, the women farmers who are trying to hold the world together. So I think just being a woman means that you are already an activist.
Hmm, interesting. And now, as a member of South Africa Jews for a Free Palestine, I believe you have encountered some challenges of being ostracized. And I'd like you to just talk us through them in terms of how everything has been for you and how is it still going for you, and what do you take away from that and what you'd like to leave us with.
Mm. So it's very interesting for me because I've been an anti-Zionist, someone who's against the Zionist entity and against the kind of Jewish supremacy that happens when there is an exclusively Jewish state of
Mm,
Israel. I've been an anti-Zionist for a very long time, but it was kind of pushed under the carpet, and I was celebrated as a Jewish creative. But
mm,
obviously, after October the 7th and after this current um, explosion of ethnic cleansing and genocide that's happening in Palestine, I've been very, very much ostracized by the Jewish community. And a lot of the kind of things that happen is that I am called terrible names, and I'm a lot of the Zionists say that I'm in South Africa. In fact, 99% of Jews in South Africa are Zionists, and that's a particular struggle because I think elsewhere in the world there are many, many more Jewish anti-Zionists. But in South Africa, it's a real challenge, and they have definitely campaigned against me,
mm,
whether it's on social media or whether it's in a court case or whether it's leaving one-star reviews on on sites on my book. So there's this it's quite ugly. There's this very spiteful campaign against me.
mm,
And on the exact opposite end, there is this huge, incredible support,
mm,
incredible camaraderie, incredible, powerful new family of pro Palestine supporters, predominantly, obviously, in the Muslim world,
mm.
where I have really felt such holding and such support uh, in direct contrast to the loss of community and family
Mm.
that I've experienced.
Hmm. And Megan, in terms of closing, I feel so disheartened because now we are out of time. I'm seeing the time is literally blinking to say time's up. But just in closing, given that it's Women's Month and women are
At break.
are an epitome of resilience. It's something that they also do get tired. They have a human side of things. I want you to just walk us through understanding that, like, what advice would you share to those particular women? But for now, before we you give us that response, we're gonna head over to an ad break, and whilst you just gather your thoughts on what advice you would share with the very woman. But see you just after this.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Gaza needs your support more than ever. Homes have been shattered and families have lost everything. With your support, Our teams are delivering clean water tankers, feeding the hungry, and assisting orphans who have no one left. Let us give Gaza whatever help we can. African Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic, Sharia, and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
Right now, in some of the most devastated parts of our world, places close to many of our hearts, Doctors Without Borders is delivering emergency medical care where no one else will. Your donation gives a child surgery, a family clean water, a community a fighting chance against disease. This is an opportunity to make your giving count where it's needed most. Visit msf.org.za/sadaqah, that's SADAQAH, and donate today. Doctors Without Borders, we go there.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners. You're still tuned in here on Salam Media, and this is Mid-Morning Talk, and I'm joined by Megan, and she is really walking us through, understanding women through her journey in terms of, you've got to be resilient, and to her own experience, she's now been ostracized by her community. But alhamdulillah, through, God's grace, she has gained another family, and the Muslim community has welcomed her with warm, open arms. Now, Megan, I'm not sure if you remember my question before we headed to an ad break, and I'm like, you know what, please give us an advice, because you're a woman who's seen it all and has been on the forefront, especially when you're looking at, because when we fight against Palestine, it's not just, standing with petitions or with boards. It goes to what we're buying, what we're eating. And through my previous guests, we've established that women are the ones who actually, I'm immaturely assuming this, saying they are the ones who are the influencers of this purchasing power, and this is the power that really is quite contributing to the fight against, the genocide against Palestine. And I'd like for you to just give us a words of encouragement in terms of, how to navigate adversity, be it being ostracized, be it being, not being paid correctly or being discriminated in that sense.
So I think we're doing it already. I think women are very, very good at organizing. I think women are very, very good at networking. I think women are very, very good at solidarity. And for me, there are two things that we just need to remember. We are not alone. I think that the world, this current version of the world, is one that makes people feel isolated and helpless and disconnected. And women are such good support for each other. Find your groups of women and work together. I have a little group called Woodstock Walkies, which is a group of women who walk in the mornings in my neighborhood. And in that hour-long walk, we solve the problems of the world. We solve the local problems of the homeless. We decide on which park we're going to tidy up next time. And so we're an active, without doing much, we're part of a community that makes us feel connected. And I think that women, there are a lot of women who are feeling isolated, who are feeling alone, who are feeling unsupported, who may even be feeling like that they're struggling and that they're useless. And the best way to take care of yourself and others is to find community and network. When together, Wathinda abafazi, wathinda
Simple God.
ibhokolo.
So the anthem goes. So the anthem goes. And I think it's important we really remember that, because in unity there's force and there's impact. And another closing from you, Megan, is looking at the young women who are watching the likes of Megan and possibly thinking they would like to also step in the same, footprints. But now it's like, oh, they fear the idea of being, left on or marginalized, if I can say so. What words of advice, or what would you like for them to learn from the activists like yourselves and those who've existed before us? I mean, speaking to the women of 1956.
So the women of 1956 were very clear. They didn't ask themselves, what do we have to lose?
Mm.
They asked, what do we have to gain? And I think that that's a shift. I think our world right now is one where people are frightened and women are frightened, and women are saying to themselves, we've got so much to lose. And I think if we could just reframe that and say, what do we have to gain? Of course, being an activist and being out there and being vocal and fighting for change does mean that you have to sacrifice things. It does mean that I am not available, or I'm not being invited into a mainstream workspace, or that I think that behind the scenes there are people who kind of are probably boycotting me. And I understand that. And there is always a price to pay. But I think that if we're going to be fighting for a freer, kinder, more humane world, then we have to understand that there are sacrifices to be made.
And with that, how do we show support to the work that you do and really keep in touch with, some of the work that you do in terms of activist and as a writer?
So I'm all over social media. Sometimes I think people even get irritated with me because I literally pop up everywhere. I'm on TikTok at Megan's Head. I'm on X at Megan's Head, even though we won't necessarily have time to speak about its owner right now. And I'm also... and so the best way to show support for the work that I do, buy my books, which are all over the place, Lost Property and now The Sound of Ice, and show up, come to the meetings, come to the marches, come to the pickets. If it's a Friday, if we're waving our flags on a Friday on some bridge, then come, bring your flag, come wave your flag, come hoot in support, show up, and boycott. The boycotts are working. We know that they're working. We know that the big companies that are being boycotted are suffering. It works.
And we see it, because now if somebody's like, no, it doesn't work, we even see it in the marketing that, oh, it's actually working. Because why would you be, inviting people in different ways and, setting like, incorrect information where you're just trying to get people to think you guys have changed your mindset or you've changed your stance in that sense. But Megan, words fail me to thank you enough to say Jazakallah, and thank you so much for really joining us today and sharing in your story in terms of how, despite what you have went through, you're still pushing through and still having your eyes on the fact that, injustice is injustice. And, being an activist is not about having a mind of scarcity, but a mind of abundance, in terms of, don't look at what am I going to lose, but rather looking at what am I going to actually gain or benefit from this. But once again, thank you so much for joining us.
Maimoona, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Viewers and listeners, that was Megan Choritz, who is a member of the South African Jews for Free Palestine. And she's also an author, as she shared, to say, you can show your support and love towards her by purchasing her books. And really, when it comes to the work of activism, it's all about you putting on those sneakers, putting in that cap, putting on that cap and applying that sunscreen and really going out there in your numbers, in our numbers for that fact, and really showing our support. But viewers and listeners, this has been quite an amazing conversation with different women that I've had joining me live today. I mean, we started off the conversation with the Professor Sindile Amina Ngubane, who was really sharing in on the importance of mentorship as public good, because we all have that story that ties us up to a point where somebody paid for either your auntie or your sister or your cousin's fee so they can continue to have access to education and become the success story that they are. And it's quite important for us to also consider paying it forward, because if we do not pay it forward, it ends with us, and that's not the future we'd like to leave behind. And really, she emphasized that Mtombo Professional Network is all about highlighting that mentorship is about, it being a public good, because with that everyone rises. Then we then had our second guest, who goes by the name of Esther Padi, who is an activist against hunger, and she's the secretary of Union Against Hunger, and she was sharing in the scaring reality, or rather the scarring realities, around how hunger affects communities, affects the growth of a child. And we can only imagine, if a child is affected, what does that mean for our future, our generation, and the legacies that we speak about? And it's quite important that we really show out in our numbers and really advocate and speak. And also in our homes, try and let's use food in a sparing manner, where we consider and think about those who don't have, and really reach out to some organizations that are putting in the work in terms of making sure that no one goes to bed hungry. And we close it off quite nicely with Megan, who also shared her story in terms of, what it means for her to, being an activist, and what she's looking forward to. And yeah, I hope this has been quite a journey, but please do not forget to keep in touch with us, engage with us. We'd like to hear your thoughts, because Women's Month is not only for Salam Media, it's for every woman in South Africa and the globe at large. But this has been quite an exciting day. But do not despair, because tomorrow we are here yet again from 11 until 1 p.m. where we engaging with all the women and sharing in their stories, their successes, their journeys, as well as getting some pearls of wisdom in terms of how we, the coming generation and the generations that comes after us, we can continue the work that they began, or rather the women of 1956 started. But on that note, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.